Chapter 10: The Vampiric Attack, Caroline's Victim. It wasn't long before Caroline selected her victim and locked onto their energy. The attack started softly as the vampire aligned herself as her victim's friend. But this did not last. For the victim, the soft phase dissolved quite quickly. The attack phase now began. Caroline became more sinister in her approach. Vampires are cold and callous creatures. They will become obtuse with their victims. Nowhere is this more discernible than in the workplace. Caroline deliberately avoided any action that could facilitate solutions or conclusions for the victim, adopting every possible means to frustrate her prey. The strategy is a clinical weapon for disarming the vampire victim and reducing their positive energies to fight back. The victim is reduced to a state of helplessness. Caroline now became more intense in her attack. The vampire's power over her victim gave Caroline the authority to act most alarmingly. When a victim feels helpless, one of the most debilitating acts that can be orchestrated is surveillance and scrutiny. This was Caroline's tactic in her vampire attack. There is an adage, criticism comes easier than craft. As hitherto stated, finding fault is not difficult since we are all creatures of fault. The vampire will focus all its attention and scrutiny on finding and highlighting faults for all to see. Every action and every deed the victim perpetrates will be scrutinized, and faults found and advertised. This was a relishing moment for Caroline's vampiric nature. She had total control over her victim. The victim was helpless in this workplace environment. It was only a matter of time before the axe would fall. The only reason it hadn't fallen was that the vampire, Caroline, was drawing every possible means of enjoyment to inflict pain and suffering upon her victim. Caroline was utterly bereft of sympathy, empathy, or conscience, allowing her to act most terribly. The victim was now naked and without the merest slip of confidence. This hunting ritual of the vampire is exercised every hour of every day in the workplace. Colleagues, feeling as though they don't have enough authority or power to intervene or lack the essentials of confidence and strength, will turn the proverbial blind eye. Those who give voice to supporting the victim will no doubt be the next victim. The vampire is an expert in fighting in the psychological arena. Caroline first made herself physically manifest to her victim. She would find every opportunity to show up unannounced. This had a debilitating effect on the victim. Even when the vampire was not there, the victim was infected psychologically by the vampire's presence. In the workplace, this had a devastating effect on the victim's performance, and even worse, the victim would carry home all the negative charges from their vampire. The victim even woke late into the night, seeing visions of Caroline. Caroline, the vampire, had accomplished her first successful attack in her new job role. She had infested the psychological health of her victim. Even when the vampire is absent, they can still feed off the psychic energy emanating from their victim. They will empty all positive energy from the victim. There is only one thing that will fill the void of lost positive energy: negative energy. When the victim returns to work, the night after having a dreadful sleep, drained of energy and feeling almost sick, the vampire will be waiting for them. Caroline was waiting for her victim. The moment the victim stepped across the threshold of work, the victim could feel Caroline under their skin, in their head. Caroline had already armed herself with a fault from the victim. Caroline had collected faults in abundance. It wasn't a difficult task for Caroline because finding fault is easy. Anyone can do it. This made it incredibly hard for Caroline's victim to escape disaster. Like a spider spreading its web, Caroline, the vampire, informed higher beings in the business about the victim's faults. Caroline laced the faults with the utmost exaggeration so that there was only one conclusion: dismissal. The vampire will exhibit no sympathy, empathy, or conscience in the intentional act. They will merely enjoy the suffering occasioned and brought on by them. The delight will be almost ecstatic for the vampire. "I'm afraid there's no alternative, and we'll have to let you go." Caroline then left the room and let the employee stay to feel their final doom, We'll have to let you go." Caroline, the vampire, negated her involvement in dismissing the victim with the term wheel. This was not conscience but a mere desire in the vampire to add weight to the situation. The total humiliation and capitulation of the hapless employee were complete. The vampire, Caroline, had conquered and destroyed her victim. All for what? The business had gained nothing because it had lost a good employee. The victim hadn't gained anything. They had lost their job. Oddly enough, perhaps the only delight after the carnage was that the victim finally felt released from the vampire's control. No doubt, there was a wisp of a smile as the victim left the office, knowing this would be the last time they would have to stand in front of the vampire. The victim could now sleep again and take back charge of their positive psychic energy. The vampire had conquered. Caroline had now conquered, but the victim was now separated from her. Boastful, self-exaggerated, and grandiose. They don't have a manifest reason like the other bullies in the workplace. Their only reason is to drain their victim of energy and life and destroy them without the slightest compassion or compunction for their act. This is the vampire bully. Each of the 4 vampires in the office demonstrated this vampiric form of bullying and supported each other. One vampire in the workplace is bad enough, as it will find hindrances and obstacles in its vampiric attack, but when you have 4, you have a disaster for the company. Sickness levels of stress within the office rose to entirely unsustainable levels of absence, work rates and performance crashed. Within 9 months, the situation was intolerable for the senior management. They employed 2 people from outside the business to investigate the cause and present solutions to get the business back on track. It took the 2 people less than 2 days to offer a single solution to the CEO. On the 3rd day, the 4 vampires were divided and placed into different business divisions around the county. Within weeks, attendance levels had risen dramatically, and performance and the work rate had increased to match previous levels. The business was back on track. The CEO related this narrative. She related how she had been taken in by these people's charm, ambition, and drive. She acknowledged that it was simply arrogance, self-exaggeration, and grandiose expression they had interviewed on the day they promoted Caroline and the other vampires. However, the CEO refused to call them vampires, preferring to simply call them bullies. "We prefer vampires." It was mentioned earlier that the vampire has no depth of character beyond the outward physical show. The CEO recognized this after her business's whole sorry affair. Listening to this story, it was interesting to note that none of the 4 vampires was a parent.